This is section 2 of the staff training day by the directors.
If any other directors that have their pages, I think I got Mark, I got Rick. That will be good. We can get those taken care of. The next thing we're going to do is our SWOT analysis. Thinking about the changeover, and I probably could do with somebody that's got some good handwriting to write on the board for us.
What do I have to write? Amy.
What people are going to be calling out to you. So if we start, let's start with, and I don't have any of the chisel ones, the little skinny ones. Okay, so we're going to think about, let me turn this off. Our changeover weekends. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So we'll start with strengths.
Are we doing like all the
Well, we'll do maybe a different sheet for each one. I guess if we can do that, we'll have to figure out how to stick them up in a second. But thinking about just the whole, having people stay over from one week to another. Strengths.
Well, we had blessed with the preteen sessions in the past of having Jerry, Kedge, and Eric on board. So as far as those 3-week changeover, that's been a strength. I haven't heard back from either one of them yet this year.
Do they do the attendance piece as well, or do they really just do the
They
activity?
just do the
So you
activity.
still have an issue with who's responsible
Right.
for knowing who's
Right.
where and all that.
Right,
I mean, that's a big piece of it, the activity piece is.
right. But yeah, that's in a sense is one of our weaknesses. Okay, so preteen activity, Jerry and Eric.
But it's also a weakness because
Well, it's because it's only part of the weaknesses that they do the activity, but not, in a sense, they don't care.
Accountability.
activities without the supervision.
Right.
Yeah, well, the activity without the
Direction.
attendance. Yeah, if somebody doesn't come to that, they have no way of knowing. They don't, whoever comes, they'll keep them occupied and entertained for several hours. So that's kind of a little gap that we have there. Other strengths that we might have.
Allows the oncoming staff to have their campers down with them, they don't come back and bring their kids. So it is a real strength that families can come down, be ready for camp, and it's a real blessing that way.
Right. So incoming staff have an expectation of supervision. It is just an expectation. But yeah, they have an expectation of it, and it is a benefit to them if they have it.
And just a note from what I've seen so far is we have a lot of staffing, especially some new staff, that will be bringing their registered campers with them. So that number for Saturday is still going to be quite high.
One of the weaknesses, and Terry knows that I'm going to say, is that we don't charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a free service. And that's fine for staff, the kids that are stayovers. It's a free service.
Parent might think it's a strength.
I'm sorry?
Parent might think it's a strength.
Parents
And I have had
that's a
parents,
strength.
you know, I have parents ask me what happens, you know, if they're coming for 2 weeks, what happens on that Saturday? And often are surprised that we don't charge for it. So,
And then we have staff that think their kids should just go the whole week for free, so, you know.
One weakness I can see is the integration of kids that do come with new staff, being able to merge in with the kids that have stayed over.
right,
So, you know, Jerry takes the kids that were there all, let's say for preteen 1, they're staying over for preteen 2, Jerry takes them out to an activity, but throughout the day, new staff is arriving with their campers, and now we have to find everyone, integrate them, make sure that the attendance is taken.
right. Yeah, so weakness is that they don't all come together, they don't all arrive at the same time. Yeah.
And then maybe another weakness, I think we've kind of implied over the years, especially in recent years, that the assistant director is kind of maybe the overseer of that, although not necessarily having a clear cut, directive on how to go forward with
Right.
that.
Well, there's actually pages of directives.
Oh,
It just-
okay.
Yeah.
I said corrected.
I have, I think here, a couple pages of information on what to do. Yeah, who's changeover weekend responsibilities. Yeah, I got about 3 pages here of things to do. But, we recognize the challenge too, in some ways, that, you've got the director that's leaving, really has to stay in place until the new person comes in. Because if we say that the staff director is responsible for facilities and staff, and the camper director and the assistant are responsible for the campers, they're campers until, from the moment they step onto the grounds, they become campers. And so, maybe a weakness is identifying them all, because, sometimes we don't get them all at the same time. What we're trying to do now is make sure that everybody that arrives at camp, a lot of times people come like straight to staff training, or they go straight to wherever they're supposed to be, or if they've been through staff training, it's like, I'm in the kitchen, so I'm gonna go work in the kitchen. Their kids are just running around, and because of their comfort level, they are comfortable, letting the kids just run. But it would be very helpful to us if we knew, okay, Rick and Jen are here, they've come to the office, they said, okay, I'm ready to go, that the secretary, or, that's another transitional responsibility. But if there was a sheet somewhere to say, okay, I'm arriving now, and I'm bringing with me my 3 kids, or 2 kids, or 1 kid, or whatever, and they're now, someone's got a list there, we've got a growing list of stayovers. We already, we can tell you who is staying from 1 week to the next. The system will, shoot that out to us. But if somebody just arrives Saturday, we don't always expect it.
I would say strength is that we do have campers that are staying for multiple weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
That what?
That we do have campers
that are
staying for
staying
multiple weeks. Yeah. And it's something that in some ways is it's a concession to the parents, because we have parents that have, some kids that they're picking up on Saturday, and then other kids that they're dropping off on Sunday. And if they're like from Canada or from, Cleveland, or they've got a hike to get to camp, it's just hard to expect them to come all the way there to pick up the children one day and then go home and then, do the same thing the next day.
Another thing that could be a strength is if kids are staying 2 or 3 weeks, they kind of need some downtime, like to keep up that pace.
Right.
Constantly might be too much, so maybe they need a day to do their laundry and just take a
Right.
nap and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you trying to work on like ways to
No,
change
this
it,
is
or we're
good.
gonna go back to
Strengths
this?
and
Okay.
weaknesses are good, and then maybe we'll do the opportunities and threats together too. Any other strengths that we can think of with regard to the stayover campers? I think Doug mentioned that, it's a good thing that we have it.
We went through several iterations of the staff confirmation letter to delineate your arrival time, your responsibilities, and we've kind of asked in that they would kind of just take the charter of helping in that
Right.
duty of looking after the stayovers. That, it's nice to have a social time after staff training on Saturday, kind of let your hair down a little bit, get reacquainted, but we kind of emphasize that, we would really appreciate you being a little more hands-on and helping with that changeover.
Right.
So we kind of put that in your, if you've seen your confirmation letter, those that have got it, it's kind of spelled out.
Anybody here got the confirmation?
Those who have actually put their application in.
Right. That's the next topic, yeah.
Sorry, if I could just speak a bit further to that, or contrary to that. The danger, not a danger, but my personal thoughts are we need at camp to have our staff sort of less communicative with each other during the week. We want the staff, the counselors, to be focused on the kids, not on their own personal relationships with one another. So that time on Saturday is really important for them. Let's get all of their socializing out of the way on Saturday before the campers arrive for the week, so that hopefully throughout the week, you know, they can have 100% focus on the campers, rather than, you still see it every week where, you know, the campers are doing, even at the scheduled activities, the campers will be playing sports, and you've got a line of counselors just standing there talking amongst themselves. And I personally would rather see more interaction during those times between the staff and the kids. So that Saturday is really important. However, the opportunity there is, like, you know, that's, I know we've got Jerry that comes in to do the activities, but maybe having someone that's on staff specifically for that purpose, you know, to be the overnight counselor on the Saturday night, to be basically the counselor for the kids on Saturday.
I hope Jerry never gets sick.
And Eric, it's more Eric than Jerry.
Yeah.
I guess one of our weaknesses there is that we have tried to get staff to do that, and nobody wants to do it.
Yeah.
So,
I did have a young woman come up to me just recently and saying that she realized that she couldn't have a whole week at camp, so she was actually thinking of being a stay-over counselor.
Good.
And I encouraged her in that and said, that's a great idea, that's so needed. And
Right.
she knows, because she's been in the position of a counselor, how much it is needed. And I think I saw last year, the counselors taking advantage of that Saturday in the girls' area and getting together and praying together before. And what a great way to encourage them to set their team building as well during that time, that they're presenting a united front as the campers come in, that they're there to support each other. So
Right.
I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, and having some, I mean, it's great having Eric and Jerry, but if we have some ladies too, it'd be great, because teen campers, a lot of times, they don't want to be scheduled, they don't want to have activity, they just want to sit, I mean, sometimes they do. But if you had somebody that could be down in the girls' area, because we know just from experience that the girls are more likely to do their laundry than the guys are, but then we kind of have a whole lot of unsupervised people down there. But if you had somebody that could just be available to them and was in the area, that'd be good for them too.
Steve, is that a listed position?
No.
Well, we had it, one year we did put it on as a listed position, and we had 2 moms that came. But really, I think what they saw it as was an opportunity for them to hang out with their girls so they really just supervised their own 2 girls for the weekend and then went home, which was not what we were looking for.
But that's a one-off.
Yeah.
Isn't,
Right.
if this becomes, I mean, Eric and Jerry do a great job, but if they get sick, we have no backup.
And
We gotta
like I said, I haven't heard
continue.
from them yet, so.
You know,
So Al, you had a question or comment too?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't all that long ago where we didn't have the Sunday start, you know, where we just did everything on Saturday. And I think today, as directors and staff directors, but mainly directors, you need to analyze what it is that you're doing on that Saturday. And can that be done ahead of time? We have all kinds of electronic telecommute, different means of communicating. You could have a webinar, you could do whatever. With your counselors even, with your other staff. But I think I've seen over the years, it becomes more of a planning session. As Uncle Dave phased out as the speaker, now the directors are getting together, not you, but the other ones that aren't here today. and they're using that as a planning time. And that should be done months before you step onto the grounds. And you've got ways of doing that where you can look at the other person's face now And it's not just talking on a telephone or writing a letter. So take advantage of that so that when you get to camp, you are ready to start your program. And it is still your responsibility. You know, you have the responsibility, the liability of those campers. And, you know, work it so that you can keep track of them. And once the staff training is over, you know what's going on with them all the time. And, you know, instead of just leaving it up to Eric and whoever happens to show up, you know, you should be knowing what's going on with them all the time.
We do, by the way, we do have a camp conference call number, free conference call number, that if you want to have a meeting with your counselors, a phone conference call with your counselors before, if you know who they are. I mean, we should be sort of knowing as the time goes on. You know, just let me know, we can make that available to you. They still have to make a long distance call, but there really almost isn't long distance anymore with cell phones. So I don't know about Canada. If you call Canada, that will probably be
We have phones there.
We're still on the dial.
Tin cans been retired?
We still have phones.
mostly Blackberries. Okay.
Yeah.
I like BlackBerry. Okay, so let's so thinking about our strengths and weaknesses, and sometimes they're just the opposite sides of the same issue. What are our opportunities then and our threats? Just thinking through some of those things. An opportunity is something that we can take, something that's a strength that we can take and build off. A threat is something that if we don't deal with this weakness, it's going to be a bad situation. So what are the opportunities and threats that we see in our current situation, and or thinking forward, you know, what they could be?
So for example, a kid gets injured
Right.
or goes swimming without supervision.
Right. So that would be a threat. That would
be
yeah,
a threat
Unsupervised.
because
unsupervised. The danger of unsupervised campers.
Or they go missing and we don't even know they're here.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, any of the alert stuff, we don't really have the staff in place and the plan and the
Right.
response to deal with this.
Right.
So-
Exactly.
You keep leaving too much room for the wrong section. I think this one's gonna be bigger.
Yeah.
Plan ahead.
Yeah, go right up the side. Yeah. So unsupervised campers and in a sense, our alert system is not in place at that point.
Well, one, I don't know if opportunity is the right word, but the one thing that I guess I've thought of is that when we've had a changeover week, there might be 10 kids that are actually stayover kids. There might be 30 that have parents there. So sometimes it's like, make sure you at least focus on the 10 that are, like, there are certain kids that really are complete responsibility.
Right.
And I don't know if we can say the rest of them, you know what, you're a parent, you need to make sure your kid is where they're supposed to be. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I
That's
suppose
hard
yes
to
and
do.
no. That's the challenge, is that, you know, we've got kids that come, and the parents, I just think, have got a very high comfort level with camp.
Right.
So it's like the kids are fine, you know, they'll be okay, but they're still unsupervised, you know. We just don't want, things can happen. Sorry, Bob, you had.
Being when as staff, you try to get there early, especially if you're doing, you know, in the kitchen, and trying to get everything set up and to keep track of your kids. It does get difficult, and, you know, just as a parent, my kids are older now, so it's not as big an issue to have some place to send them to put their gear to, you know, when they are there early, because, I mean, frankly, we want staff to get there as early as possible. And if there's something that, you know, the kids can participate in, that would be really helpful.
Right.
So could we have like an official, almost like a sign-in list, like parents are turning over responsibility to the staff? Because that's the thing, is kids are like, well, my mom said I could do this, and it's very tricky.
And it happens in not just with campers, but bunny campers too, because the
Yep.
parents have arrived. Now we've got all these little kids, and
And that's huge because staff training goes on
Mhm.
at the
Bunny
same
camp
time.
director.
But bunny
Right.
camp is responsible
Right.
for the children.
right. So we have started trying to put a list in the secretary's office, but it's really critical that everybody knows that that's the first place to go. You've got to come to the office, let us know that you're here, let us know who's with you. And sometimes we have parents that have brought not just their own kids, but other people's kids, because they're carpooling or whatever, and, you know, we don't connect the dots by saying, oh, that's not a Miles, or it's not a March, or well, it wouldn't be your kids yet. Not yet, but.
Part of what we have is a logistics problem too, because we've got kids coming into camp that we don't have any place we can really put them.
Right.
Because they haven't had their head checks, they haven't signed in, they're not registered as campers yet. And what can we do with them at that point?
Right.
Let's build those bunkers.
Some in the bunkers.
But, you know, that's something that we need to consider. Maybe they have to actually register as the parents are coming in. And I know that's terrible for her. I mean, she needs a day off too.
Well,
Or a
that's,
day to get ready for the
that's
next
the
one.
ready, yeah, that's a busy day for that, but we're gonna talk a little bit about that, about the pre-registration process. Lori, first.
I'm going back a few years in my mind, so maybe the policy has changed, but weren't the stayover campers technically under the direction of the assistant camp director for that day?
Yeah, that's what's currently in place, and there's kind of that handover. Now, when we have somebody like Jerry and Eric, or they're there, we still had an expectation that periodically through the day, that the assistant director would check in and say, okay, is everybody here? We've got accountability, and you know that's the way it's supposed to work. But you know, it's easier for preteens than teens because they don't want to be all in the same place. You know, there we would keep them all in one place.
The funny campers would fall under the staff director.
Well, it becomes though the buddy camp director as far as, like, I know when I go on Saturday, they're mine that day, and I think part of this, what the problem is expectation.
Right.
Because I've done it enough times, I now treat Saturday like camp day.
It's the first day.
And I start scheduling things that day, because if you leave it as like a free-for-all, then it's craziness.
Right.
You have
Yeah.
to kind of treat it
It's like a
as part
Saturday
of the
start.
Yeah,
program.
yeah, bunny camp starts a whole day earlier.
Yeah, and that's-
Totally.
but maybe that's
At
the
2
problem.
o'clock even. I mean, but I can't
Yeah.
director really can't go to staff.
Right.
The staff meeting.
Right, and I think, I wonder if that's part of the problem with this, is that the expectations need to be set.
Right.
That Saturday becomes part of your program.
Right.
But not necessarily the program in the way that Al described it in
Right.
terms of campers being there, because I do think, I think one of the things we're lacking, and this is totally has nothing to do with what we do with campers, enough training, enough education. I mean, the staff training is fine and everything, but to be honest with you, I think everybody kind of says, okay, that's over, and then, and I feel like sometimes we're losing the spiritual emphasis and everything, and to be able to get, we have counselors that come in who've never counseled before, and they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and the director is so busy getting things ready for the camp, they can't focus on the counselors. It's their responsibility, but they can't do it because there's so many other things that need to get done. And then we have people going into the cabins the next day and they really don't even know what they're doing, and they get lost in it. And with this idea of the program starting on Saturday, to me, that the emphasis has to be on a lot of that training and education and really getting people spiritually focused and emphasized.
And I think we did try to do that with having, I think, at least 2 meetings scheduled for the counselors on the Saturday. We had one like after the training, and then one again, you know, sometime in the evening.
And I agree 100% with John. I don't even know if I have enough counselors till that day. In the past couple of years, it's been really a struggle. And not even know what the program is. I try to get the program out, and we have something called Trello, which I highly suggest. It's a great virtual thing to get the word out. But Teen Camp has got a couple of unique challenges. And one is that the campers were on staff, and so the expectation has to change for them. And having someone have that opportunity to train them on that, that's a real big challenge. And we haven't had a stayover weekend person kind of doing that, so that's been a challenge. I've had a new assistant director every year. I don't know, it's something about me maybe, but that's been a challenge. I need the assistant director kind of bringing up. And the other opportunity, I think, is, to John's point, when I have a new staff, this is my chance to get the spiritual temperature of the counselors and to know, am I going to have issues during the week? So I really need to kind of focus on building them up and getting them understanding where we're going with the program. it's a really hard thing to kind of do both. And it's a real struggle that I have every year.
Terry, comment that John made, I'm tying it to the one that Alan made about years ago, and I was camp director when we had Saturday starts. Everything happened on Saturday. Boom. You want to do multitasking. And for the very reasons that we're talking about here, we shifted to a Sunday start, and now we're seeing the Sunday start and all of the carryovers pushing us back onto clouding up the Saturdays. I think somehow we have to try to stay with the original plan. I don't know the answer to that.
The original plan and,
Of a Sunday start.
right.
So that
Campers.
Saturday can get established, so that when the bulk of the kids come on the Sunday, everybody's in place, everybody knows what they're doing.
Right.
They've been able to set a spiritual, continuous spiritual tone. They know what their jobs are, and when the parents bring the kids into the cabin, they find a counselor there, just welcoming them in.
Right.
The parents go home knowing my kids are looked after.
See, and I think we have a challenge that a lot of camps don't, in that we have very often new counselors every week. A lot of them will have counselors that will run the entire summer, so they train them at the beginning and they'll stay there for all summer. But we deal with the reality of what we have, and but I think you're right. I think that Saturday is a good orientation day. All of those trainings, the communication, some of those conversations should be happening. Now, using Trello, we were actually going to do a little demo this afternoon of Trello. It is a great tool, and communicating as often and as frequently as possible with your counselors and other staff before is good. You will have to have some time spending there, on the day. But in a practical sense, I think just having a formal check-in process that we have on Saturday where everybody comes, and it's probably the secretary is probably the best place to do it. We did talk about maybe should we have somebody at the gate so that they're recording that information, but then you've got that group of people's changing all the time, and sometimes we forget they're down there. They've been there since breakfast. They cooked in the sun all day. But yeah, so we ask a lot of people, and we should, but I think the office is the best place to do it.
Well, even just a formal check-in for staff.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you had a formal check-in for staff, and then with that, knowing who the campers are,
Right.
that every staff has to report to this spot when they
Right.
come in.
Right.
And we're driving to wherever we think we're staying, and we get out, we unpack, and then we go and do whatever we think we're supposed to be doing.
We're trying to address that, and the first part of the confirmation letter says 1:30 to 2 o'clock. Check in at the office with the secretary for your housing assignment and to make notification of the campers that you have brought with you that day. So we're trying to get them used to that idea, to do just that. And then the other thing is maybe the bunny camp, I know we've had a team that's been put in place to redo the job descriptions. Maybe as the standard operating procedure for a bunny camp worker or bunny camp director would be to include the Saturday, expectations that we have
Right.
Of them, if they're gonna sign up for that
Right.
position.
And
Yeah.
then, would it be possible for the kids who are coming up, the workers who are gonna be campers, to have the lights checked done when they check in, so they could just right away go with that group, so you don't have two different groups of kids you're trying to keep track of?
Right, so that kind of goes to a couple of points along with the bunny camp one. Not everybody should be there between 1:30 and 2. Perhaps the nurse has to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning. Perhaps whoever's going to do the check-in, the secretary, has to be there at 11 o'clock in the morning. And we need to stop having this, okay, everybody come in between 1:30 and 2. Depending on what role you're playing, you may need to get there earlier on Saturday because of these things.
Right.
But even if you include that in in the SOP in the job description, how many people actually read that when I put the attachment there? I mean, I
Well, and that's where
well
the staff
taken.
director can follow up with them in advance to say, listen, we really need you here by such and such a time, and not to lay things on the staff director, but
No, that's,
It's
that's,
not
that's,
sitting on my table.
that's a valid point. I understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Gloria has a question at the back there.
With technology changing the way it is, do we see some of, maybe the bulk of the staff training going to the internet? So that people can attend it ahead of time?
We have talked about that, and I've looked at it. We looked at that Udemy was the one that one of the other camps was using. I guess the two concerns, one is that are people actually doing it? How do we know that they've done it if it's online? And then, because there is a site that we did use once where you give everybody a login and you actually know that they've done it, but then we talked to the ACA guys last year. It's like, what if somebody else does it? It's like, well, who else is going to do somebody else's staff training? It's hard enough doing it yourself. Why would you do somebody else's for them? So they don't worry about that. But I've looked at it. A lot of it is video based, so we would have to, which we are trying to do. We're creating a video, and then you've got to break it up, and it's almost like the blended thing that they Red Cross do. You watch a short video, answer a couple of questions, and you go to the next part. So there's some work involved to do it, but it could be done. There's potential for it to be done. And we can actually have it done where you could sign with like an electronic signature that says, I attest that I actually did do the staff training, and
Maybe having it pop up at certain points through the video, so that if you don't sign it,
right.
then they'll know. Because I'll tell you, in all honesty, there have been a lot of staff trainings where I've been physically present, but not really there. And I know in years past, you've begun adding staff trainings, like in Rochester, when you're there speaking for camp emphasis Sundays, or
That helps
in
a
other
lot.
locations.
Mhm.
Do you see that going more?
Well, we have 3 already scheduled for this year. We've got one in Scott Lee at the 31st of May, Rochester the 7th of June, and then Erie on the 14th of June.
And is that something that I can do at our chapel? I mean, I do the staff, the training at camp for the
Right,
regulars.
and we have talked about that kind of a train the trainer kind of thing. As long as that we've gone through it, we know who's been done, sure, yeah. That would be good, find your own day to do it.
One other challenge that we haven't really talked about is stayover staff. They often are gone for the day on Saturday. Some of them don't even come back till Sunday, which causes headaches for the staff director and the director. I don't know if we have a set policy for that or not, but.
You will stay and you will enjoy it.
You will stay and you'll enjoy it.
Well, yeah, it's a hard one,
Is that what
especially
the
if people, we do say to people, we don't want them staying for, months and months, or weeks and weeks and weeks. And then make it hard for them if they decide they want to, get away from the camp for a half a day. But it is hard, I know, for directors, where you want all of your counselors to be there, and then all of a sudden, there's nobody there, because they decided they'd go out to dinner, or they went to watch a movie, or they went to do something to kind of break the thing, but it's like, now it's messed up the next director's week. So, yeah, it's a tough one. They have to be there until the last camper leaves, which can sometimes be late in the, mid-afternoon, sometimes if they have a late parent. And then we're saying, okay, well, now from 4 o'clock, they didn't even have time for a 10-minute nap, and they're into the next thing. So it's a tough one. It is tough. So I don't know what the policy should be or the program on that.
First, just to confirm Lori's earlier point, yes, it is the assistant director that is responsible for the kids on the Saturday. As an outgoing assistant director, the big issues that we face are the parents show up to take the kids that are going home. They're camp people themselves. They stay around, they walk the grounds, they talk to their old friends from camp. Their kids are just running around, and they're going to gravitate to the other kids. So we'll end up having our attendance of the stayover kids mixed in with kids that
just haven't gone home
are
yet.
there and just haven't gone home. An opportunity that I can see working in that case, again, if we can coordinate the staff to help out with this, is to take the stayover campers and just move them. Take them up to Fort Seneca, run some activities up there, so that there's no intermingling between the stayover campers and the ones that are going home. As new stayover campers arrive with staff, they sign in, we've got a group of 5 of them, someone takes them up to Fort Seneca, they join the group there, and they're isolated. And, if a procedure can be set to accomplish that, I think it would work great, and then, you know, they get brought back at key times and attendance taken throughout the day.
Why is it a problem for you to have a few extra kids, I guess, would be my question. I mean, as long as you have the ones you need to have.
It's not necessarily a problem, except when you're trying to do a quick head count.
Yeah.
So, you know, you get your stayover campers, and you get your full attendance, and you know you've got 13 campers, and then you get engaged in an activity, you need a quick head count. There's 13 campers there,
13,
so,
all they have the
okay,
same
we're
13,
good, but
right.
4 of those campers are
Okay.
actually not your stayover campers.
So if you don't, because you don't know the kids, then.
Yeah.
Here's a question. What if the assistant director leaving one stays until Sunday and maintains that program with them? So he that's all he's responsible for, is those kids, where they are, what the activities is. Then that'll take the pressure off the incoming one trying to have to do that. They don't know the kids. The outgoing one knows these kids because he's been with them all week. Just a thought. He stays till Sunday, 4:30.
Outside of the fact that I think that might diminish the volunteerism on this.
Just one more day.
No, I know, but I just
Yeah,
think of
yeah.
like, you know, they're going back to work Monday, they're
Yeah.
tired, they probably want to get home. So I'm just saying that I can see where.
Sunday.
Yeah.
And Betsy, I appreciate that, because I think, what most of those last years, I think it'd be great to think about opportunities, and maybe Fort Seneca is one idea. I'd love to think of something that engages the kids who are there.
Yeah.
So if you're there, maybe you're gonna work on a service project at camp.
Yeah.
Maybe we think of something at camp
Right.
we can do and say, especially with teen camp.
Yeah.
I'd love if they get tired the first day. I would love that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Clean
find a
up
way
the
to get them
wrappers
about
and
engagement
clean it
service.
Yeah, I like that too, I really do, you know, they could do
But
that.
that kind of goes back to an earlier comment someone made about people being a little run down after a week of camp and that being a time to recharge. But at the same time, we're also talking about activities to, you know, rev them up. And it's like, you know, is there a balancing between those two desires? Well, when do you do your laundry for a stayover?
Yeah.
If
Right.
you don't do it that Saturday, you know,
Right.
oh, but we have another activity, go to that.
And we're talking about two different groups. We have incoming staff
We're
kids and we
fresh,
have kids
yeah.
who've been there and they're totally exhausted for weeks, so you really
Yeah, I
have.
do kind of like the idea of, you know, let's kind of move them off to the side, you know, because of everybody who hasn't gone home yet and the new people that have come in and haven't checked in. And yeah, I can see that having it in a, you know, like in the front of the lodge would be terribly confusing.
I think Eric tried that one time. The trouble is transitioning those new ones coming in up to that group
Getting them over there.
they all got lost. So whoever was responsible to get them there thought they'd gone, but they hadn't gone, so they're wandering around crying, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, like, you know, all that stuff. So, you know, it's just crazy. So that, I like the idea, but we gotta figure out a procedure to make
Yeah,
it work right.
You'd actually have to walk them up physically so
Yeah.
that, you know, you're there when you hand them over to whoever's running things, wherever they are.
Yeah, which means more staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal would be we'd have a girl and a guy and somebody in charge, and the
Yeah.
girl would take the girls and say, okay, girls, let's go and let's do your laundry and let's take care of this and who wants to take a nap and blah, blah, blah. And the guy would do the same thing. And then at certain
Yeah.
times they'd check in and say, okay, we're gonna play a game. And I mean, that would be the ideal, but getting 3 people
but
lined
in-
up to do that.
Yeah, but in that ideal, I think then the assistant director could still be the one in
Right.
charge, as long as they know these two are essentially overseeing them, running the program, doing it. But then the assistant director just checks in with those two. So it's adding 2, but I don't think necessarily
Right,
3.
I mean, but still, yeah, so.
And what to me, like, I'm just wondering, it just seems like everyone's so spent, I mean, to make this as a position and to kind of really get the word out more in the chat and say, hey, you came there for the week, would you come for the day? You know, sign up for one day, multiple times maybe if, you know, I mean, it's great you have these 2 guys, but I know at teen camp, they don't have anybody.
Right.
And they would have to be there by 10 or 11 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah.
And they can leave at 1 o'clock on Sunday or maybe 2 o'clock, something, you know, where it's very definable and the
Right.
roles are very well laid out.
Yeah,
If you don't set the ideal, you accept the mediocre.
yep.
Are there more than 3 stay-over weekends? I mean,
Oh,
like
yeah.
preteen and teen?
do 1 to 2.
Yeah, we have
2 to
kids
3.
that are 13 that can go to, all the way through preteen and into
5.
teen camp, yeah.
So get 5.
And round up if they want to stay 6
And
weeks.
family camp to. I mean,
And
you might have
family camp.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Right.
Preteen one as
For,
well.
for the incoming, this is further to Betsy's suggestion, for the incoming assistant director to take over on the Sunday is not as big as an issue. It's the Saturday that they're, I'll say, more needed, not so much for planning, but like preteen one, for example. This Saturday, there's stuff that you can't plan ahead for, like the designation of where the CITs are going. You know, we've got the distribution of the achievements and, you know, the actual counselors meetings where the director and assistant director meet with the counselors. It's hard for the assistant director during those times specifically to be with the stay-over campers. So that's where you need someone on staff. But for the idea of staying over, I don't think the outgoing assistant director would need to stay right till 4 o'clock when registration starts. You know, stay over with them in the cabins or wherever they're staying in overnight, and then, you know, leave after the chapel meetings in the morning would be more than sufficient. Like the assistant director incoming can take those kids' responsibility on the Sunday.
In the morning.
Yeah,
And perfect would be if you had a couple that could come, you know.
Yeah.
That's really where our,
It's how you sell that job, because with 10 assemblies involved at camp, there's gotta be people that, you know, they can't get the time off on the weekdays, but certainly should be able to help us out, that are qualified people to do that. So maybe it's a marketing issue.
it's a marketing and a training, because,
Yeah.
you know, we've done it in the past where we've had people come in, they kind of thought they knew what they were supposed to do, but they still, like, we had kids wandering all over the place, didn't know where they were supposed to go, so there wasn't a cohesive procedure going on.
Yeah, I mean, before we mentioned the separate venues and things like that, I think I had mentioned to Terry that maybe every 2 hours, you line them up
Yeah.
somewhere and do the accountability, and then they got 2 hours, and you bring them back at 6 o'clock and
Yeah.
make sure, but, you know, I don't know how practical that is either.
well, you know, I mean, they should be more or less together. We should be able to account for them every so often.
I would think that would be an easy position to fill with parents dropping off kids or picking them up, that they may be willing to stay for the weekend.
That might be your pay there, that addresses that. Like, there's no charge for it, but you have to stay. If you're gonna drop somebody off on Saturday and, you know, for Sunday.
I just see it's a time that we're not charging anybody and we're just giving them a free ride for the day. We're feeding them, we're maintaining them, we're providing activities for them, which we would charge for every other day of the week.
Right. But if we were willing to do that and say, maybe some of those parents could just stay over and help us with that, you know, just, yeah.
A written job description and then maybe just some brief training with the outgoing assistant.
Yeah, and we'd have to be careful with the people that, you know, like,
And where do you put that option to check? To
Right.
go to Shirley with the camp registration, or go to Steve with the staff
Right.
registration?
I think it would have to be more of a recruited position.
Yeah.
You need
You couldn't
to
have
go to people
just-
and say, you'd be good at this.
right.
Yeah, you have to handpick them,
Yeah, like a weekend director or
Yes.
something.
yeah.
We,
Did they bring it in?
mean,
Did they bring it in?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know what, why don't we, sorry, I'm
That's
gonna,
okay.
why don't we, because our lunch is now in those containers over there. I see her sneak in. So why don't we give thanks, and then perhaps we can take our lunch, bring it back to our tables, and we can continue this conversation while we eat as well. And then we'll kind of run through our reports as well, because we're chewing up our day. But this is a very important conversation for us to have, but we got to do two things at one time. Let me ask our Dave Martin, would you be able to give thanks for us for lunch? And thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we pause in your presence to give you thanks for this meal. We ask your blessing upon it. Lord, we're so grateful to be a part of this ministry at Camp Liloli and just the discussion that we've had so far. we just pray that as the day goes on, we just continue to be productive and thoughtful and just keeping in mind what our efforts are about, ministering the gospel of Jesus Christ to the unsaved. Lord, we just pray again for a good afternoon, and we're thankful for each one who's able to be here today and just their planning and preparation for the summer's programs. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Good. All right, well, why don't we take about 10, 15 minutes? He has
Part 2 of SWAT.
has some food in front of them or some coffee in front of them. Let's get going again. I'm just going to let Ella, if there are a couple of things you wanted to say, and then we'll take it back. This is the book that says that you actually did go through the staff training today. Yes. So I'm going to let you just sign your name there, and then you're good for the summer.
So while we're eating food, just a few things to mention about the food at camp. First of all, if you are planning any special activities that relate to food and things that we need to maybe research or find, source out, the sooner you can let me know, the better, so that we can find those items for you. Snacks, you have a pizza snack for your whole camp. If you want to change that to something else, that's fine too. But again, we need to know more than on the Saturday when you arrive, so that we can make sure that we have those items in. We are buying some of our food a week or two ahead, you know, and getting it on the grounds, because sometimes we order it and it's out of stock. So those specialty items we need to know ahead of time. And then you also have your cabin cleanup treat reward for your campers. So those are the two items, that the kitchen supplies. Anything else that you want to do would come out of your director's budget.
Don't we do Sunday night snack also, like ice cream or something when they get there, or is that not supposed to be happening?
Well, Saturday, quite often they'll have
Is it
ice
Saturday?
cream snack or
Okay.
something like that, yeah. So, with some of the sessions, what they're doing too is they'll take a dessert, like if you have a big meal, an evening meal, they won't serve the dessert right away. And so you could just take that and transfer that to for an extra snack or something like that. So it's not adding something, it's just make sure that you are aware though of how fatigued your kitchen help are. If you're asking them to start early in the morning and then work late at night. And usually we only abuse the family camp kitchen people for that. So you might put your session staff into shock if you told them that you wanted them to serve a 9:30 snack. So talk to them. At some of our sessions, the meals have really been upgraded, and people will give large sums of money to have special food items. That's fine, but also be considerate of the people that are coming in after you. Or if you're doing that for preteen 1 and then you stop, providing that the extra funds or whatever for those super meals, then the next cook that comes in, people say, well, we used to have this or we used to have that. So just be a little sensitive to that. I guess my theory is, I just want, if we're having a chicken dinner, I want to serve the best chicken dinner I can produce, something that is very good, as opposed to having to, bring in all kinds of other food. We're not opposed to that, but again, just be sensitive to others' feelings and also the amount of work that it puts on the kitchen staff. Now, sometimes, and maybe usually it is the kitchen people that are initiating that, so they should know better by now that they're going to kill themselves. If they have that big Thursday meal, they still have to provide Friday and Saturday breakfast. So just a few items there. The last one we mentioned a little bit about staying out of the kitchen. The kitchen at home is a focal point for the family. It is at camp too. And we need to change that a little bit. You've got that aisleway going right through the kitchen that gets used all the time. Sometimes people park themselves there and they'll be talking to the kitchen staff as they're working. The time when they come in is our busiest time. You know, they're coming in to get cleaned up or to go into the dining hall, and they'll stop there and try to engage somebody in conversation, and either they're going to cut themselves or burn themselves or whatever. At the very least, they'll be distracted, and then our meal won't be put out at the right time. So if you can keep people moving through the kitchen area, not stopping and talking, that would be greatly appreciated. And then just things, you know, if you're in the kitchen, you probably don't have a head covering on where the kitchen people will, and we get hair in the food. And then the kitchen staff get blamed for that. So just keeping the kitchen clean, you know, is a big help, and not distracting the staff while they're trying to get the meal ready is also a big help. Anything else, Dave or Amy, that food related? No cook's parades?
Yeah, that'd be
What about special dietary?
Yeah, special orders do upset us. And what we're finding is we have to have somebody in the kitchen that's looking after that, because there are so many different special needs.
I have been, like last year, I've been trying to make sure that gluten-free is the main one. And starting to, kind of giving the cooks some ideas of some quick substitutions and having some stuff available. Because if a camper comes down and they don't bring food, you know, we are at the point where we do have to accommodate people to some extent, but it should not be someone's full job to cook for that person. I mean, that's my opinion, but we don't have enough people to do that. So if it's staff members, they might have to do some sending for themselves, or we might have to say, you know, we've been coming up with a lot of ideas of, okay, here's the other thing that will work for all of these people. One time we had 7 different allergies in 1 week that we were trying to do.
I had 11 people I was trying to, some were dairy-free, some were...
But yeah, I mean, 7 different things, you know,
Yeah,
dairy,
7
gluten,
different,
peanuts,
right.
yeah. I'm trying to remember, it's like, you can have a piece of chicken, that's all, you know, but it does get crazy,
Well,
but.
the other thing we've been trying to do, and we can do it through registration if we know about it, you know, if there's an allergy that the nurse needs to know, usually we're letting the nurse know, but now we need to let the kitchen know too. But if we can also then identify those parents, and we talked about it the other day, just send the parents, this is what the menu is gonna look like this week. So kind of plan your, you know, if you need to bring some extra things with you, so that the parents know before they get there that, okay, Tuesday's not gonna be a good day. Everything is gonna have something in it that I can't eat, but it looks like, and then they can help guide their own campers.
Well, if we could suggest maybe even for those days, like I think that's a terrific idea, that they have even a frozen dinner or something, because then one wants their milk, or, you know, you're still running for trying to put together a lot of different things that they brought, because they're not allowed in the kitchen. So even if they have like a frozen dinner or something they can prepare, we can put in the microwave, that would be more manageable.
I don't know if there's any way we could say this, but, I mean, if a kid is coming to camp with some sort of allergy that's gonna be in the ingredients, could we say to the parents, your child has to be able to look at that label and tell if it's safe? Because I'm not comfortable making that decision. If this is gluten-free, or if this is soy-free, or, because there's so many different words and stuff. And that, we had a girl that couldn't have canola oil, and that's in all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But I would just go to her and, here's the label, and I put it more on her, or her mother was there at first. But I don't know, that's just a huge responsibility if we have to not only know, but decipher labels and stuff, so,
And
I don't know.
I think if we could just have like some hamburgers and hot dogs that are gluten-free, maybe a couple gluten-free pizzas, some fillers. We always have the gluten-free cereal, and that's good, but just to have a few things like that on hand, and yeah, maybe they have to have hot dogs an extra day or hamburger or something.
Yeah. So I think my time is done here, my work is done, but the other problem that we do have is people that are choosing to be, oh, I don't want to eat bread, you know. But so it's not a medical issue or an allergy, it's just a choice. And those are the people that really just have to eat what's in front of them or
Not just
ask for a bowl of
But
soup.
how do we communicate that, and do we stick to it? That gets kind of tricky.
Yeah, we had a vegetarian till some meal came along that she wanted, and then she just ate the meat, you know.
So she's a vegetarian.
Those
She
are,
does eat steak and chicken.
yeah.
We've had a few things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Well, we're not quite finished this project here, but I also wanted to maybe get the report. So if we could start with the directors that we have here, if you could give us a quick thumbnail of your week. Mark, I don't know if you could just tell us about your, who's speaking and what your, if you have a specific theme. I know you've got a camp theme, but.
Yeah. So our speakers this year, I'm trying to dredge this up now after in my meal digest.
Randy Hoffman.
What's that?
Randy Hoffman.
Randy
Thank you,
Hoffman,
thank you.
Thomas Wheeler.
Thomas Wheeler and Randy Hoffman. Thomas was actually down at camp several years ago, at family camp in the maintenance chief. He's a full-time commended worker out of Dallas, Texas, and came back as a speaker subsequent year. Really enjoyed his ministry. It's been several years, I think 6 or 7 since we had him last, but he's back this year. And Randy Hoffman, who many of you know, who's actually been a camper at family camp with his family, and is also commended, I think working out of Heidelberg Assembly in Ontario, is also speaking this year, first year as a family camp speaker. So taking up tangents to the camp theme. Looking forward to their ministry certainly. I guess just other notes on the program in general, continuing to work with Mike Smith here. This will be Mike Smith here with us as the assistant, and actively working towards transitioning Mike to be the director and me ultimately to be a has-been. So, and that's all proceeding real well. So certainly continue to appreciate Mike and Lori's involvement in the program, and looking forward to more of that. Trying to think if there's anything else I really ought to.
It is, this year is the 30th anniversary of the first family camp, so we're just going to have a little day of, I guess, to mark the day that it is a birthday day.
Yeah, modest recognition. In fact, the more I thought about it, it's just like, how did I end up taking that on? Did we really need to? But it was mentioned by a couple of people last year that this would be the 30th year that we had Family Week. So we are going to have an activity planned around actually screening a 30th anniversary family camp logo that Amy designed. To bring your own shirt or buy a shirt, and you can silk screen the logo on there, and screen print the logo on, and having a cake and a PowerPoint slideshow, and trying to keep it fairly low key, but have some recognition along the way. Yeah, the only other comment I'd make, so many times when we talk about Camp Loyola, understandably we talk about kids getting saved, which is huge. The presentation of the gospel to kids who haven't received it. Terry mentioned very much part of the mission of Camp Loyola is not just kids getting saved, though, but kids being built up as disciples of Jesus Christ, right? And I'm grateful for the influence of Camp Loyola in my own children's lives in that respect. They were saved before they came to camp as campers, but they certainly have been really built up by their participation as campers, and then subsequently as staff, and CIT program has been very influential for that. But family camp is sort of the redheaded stepchild of Camp Loyola in a way. No offense here. That it's an equally important ministry in what we do, though. I think a time away from so many of the pressures that families face together in the world. where they're able to put aside all the electronic things and all the demands and the demands of children's activities too. We're, again, very much like the people that we're serving, if we can't caught up in those things. You know, the time that we have away to just refocus on one another, to push those things back, enjoy the creation that God has made, good teaching from His Word, and realize what is it that really is closest to our hearts that we share together in as a family is of real significance for the people that come to family camp too. So right alongside those things for our younger campers who come. Very grateful for what I've been able to experience as a camper many years ago for family camp and still be part of Provide. There's my soapbox for today.
Good. And we've actually started to see quite a lot of people that came just for family camp who are now rolling into other weeks, which has been wonderful to see as well as that it's growing. And coming as staff, people that didn't really have a connection to camp in any other way other than they found camp somewhere and somehow, and now they're a part of camp in a variety of different ways, so that's good. Steve, pre-team 1, put you on the spot there quickly.
No, that's fine. I talked to Art ahead of time, so. Pre-team 1, again, director is going to be Arthur Manning, and I'll be helping him out. Our theme for the week this year is To the Ends of the Earth, and we'll be going through the book of Acts, starting at Pentecost, with the focus on the gospel message that the disciples were preaching, but also the idea of the growth of the church and taking the Word of God into the world, turning the world upside down, that others could be saved. So we are, again, focusing on both aspects of the camp mission, the presentation of the gospel, but also taking that gospel with you, living it out, and preaching it to others. Our speakers this year are actually going to be Arthur Manning and myself. We don't have a speaker coming in, but the two of us will be taking on the messages. And yeah, we've got some great things lined up with the skits. One of them, as of right now anyway, involves Jeff Haig levitating himself as Simon the Magician. So I think the kids will get a good kick out of that. And like I say, the focus is primarily on the book of Acts, preaching of the gospel throughout the world.
Very good, good. Colin is not here for pre-teen 2. In fact, I don't think there's anybody here for pre-teen 2. But they are they're taking up the topic of our liberty in Christ and freedom from bondage. So again, the gospel message that we can be free from the bondage of sin, but we can also, as we live, we have, in a sense, freedom in Christ to live our lives, but in Christ. So that's Colin. He's got Grant Saxton is the speaker for his week, Grant from the Scott Lee Assembly. And then, still don't have an assistant for him. We've got a couple of feelers out right now. Preteen 3, Dave is preteen 3, and I don't know that he's given me, I know he told me something. I had a feeling it was Jonah. But I cannot remember offhand, so I'll have to get back to you on preteen 3. Team 1, Rick.
So we're pleased to say that Jesus is speaking at camp. We're not sure who he's going to speak through yet, but we are focusing on Colossians, and I think about the backdrop of Colossians, the message that the world pounds into people, defrauding, deluding, taking captive, acting as judge. The message of Colossians 2, Colossians just our sufficiency in Christ and Christ's preeminence. Those are kind of key things we'll start off with early. The prayer in chapter 1, that they may know His will, that they walk to please Him, that they would bear fruits, they would understand His word better, and know His power. Those are the things we're going to focus on through the week. And to the message of our overall theme, 1 John 1:9, God's faithfulness. I love chapter 4 because it really describes personal people, like Onesimus, John Mark, Demas, good and bad examples that we saw through Scripture. And we're going to play on that a little bit with maybe Epaphras kind of walking around and telling the story a little bit about that. That's some of the things we're working on. Really appreciate your prayer. Sean Milligan has consented to be our assistant director, and but we really are low on staff, and in almost every area. So appreciate your prayer that God would do that work that God does. Usually at the 11th hour. It'd be really great this year if it was a little sooner.
Thank you, Rick. Our speaker for Team 2 is here. John is our speaker for Team 2. They're going to take up the topic, a future and a hope, thinking of Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. So we know them. So again, a great topic that can go in a couple of different ways. John, you have anything else you want to add to that? Your outline? Or... Okay, so that's a good topic.
Mike is planning on focusing on future.
On the future, so it's going to be somewhat of a futuristic. We'll see if the plans that he has in his head ever make it to reality, because it's a pretty amazing.
Well, I think his
possible plans.
desire is toward the future and the hope, what we have in Christ,
Right.
you know, and really focusing on that. So, still twirling with ideas to pull that together.
Good. Yeah, it's going to be a good week. And then Ted?
Thanks for waking me up.
Well, Roundup is doing a theme of Moses from his calling and going through the desert with the nation of Israel. We're kind of looking at it as being another lap around Mount Sinai kind of thing until we learn our lessons. And John Shuttelich will be back doing our messages. Bob Wheeler's agreed to be my assistant. I asked Bob 3 times before he thought I wasn't kidding. And then he very willingly said yes, and today he hasn't turned around and said, no way. We're on a good path. We also have a new Bible study person, Dave King from Horton Haven. Their camp is wrapping up, I think the week before or something like that, and he's going to come up and run the Bible study program for us. And you know, you talk about the 11th, 12th hour. Well, Roundup kind of operates on the last hour, except this year the last hour is getting pushed up a day because a lot of the college kids have to be back to school on that Friday. And a lot of parents are taking their kids to school for the first time on that Friday. So this is, there's also a baby coming into the Fox household. Emily's having a baby. Technically, early August, probably mid-August, which means I may not have my normal secretary or pianist. Aaron's not going to be at Roundup because he's got to be someplace, so I don't have that pianist, Aaron Young. And a lot of holes that we've got to fill, a lot of holes. So if you could be in prayer about that, we know that the Lord's going to be faithful and fill all those needs that we have. I just wish he would do it on my time frame. So but I know he's got it in control.
John, did you have anything about Family Camp Weekend?
So Scott DeGroff is scheduled to be our speaker for Family Camp Weekend. Some of you may know Scott, and if you do know Scott, you may also know he's been going through a number of health issues over the last 3 or 4 months. At this point, he has canceled all his summer ministry because of these health issues, not having the strength to really do it. He has not canceled Family Camp Weekend yet. I just communicated with him this past week. But my plan is to find a willing brother to be a backup speaker at the 11th hour. You know, and I'm sure Scott would give us much more than the 11th hour warning on that as well. But be praying for that, just that the Lord would provide a brother that would be willing to kind of take up that backup role. You know, and ultimately I would love to have Scott still come. It might be the first time he really unleashes after going through this, you know, these health issues and whatnot too. So that would be kind of a really awesome experience at Liloli. So Mike is the assistant, Doug is our staff director, and a great crew as always. So my job is always very, very easy. And registration is online now, so Shirley takes care of all of that. So I used to have to do that piece, so the hard part for me was before, and Shirley just made that easier too. So.
Shirley's job got harder.
Okay, good. It sounds like we've got a great summer scheduled and planned. not without some challenges. So we do want to keep all of these weeks in prayer. What I had up here just a minute ago was the staff list as of right now. And you'll see that we've got some areas that are filled and others that are not, and so be in prayer about it. There are some that are very strong in the sort of leadership area, and then not much else below that. So that's something we really have to address. I know each are trying to do what they can in their areas, but we'll see in a couple of weeks we are missing, well, we got Becky is coming for most of the Craft One security, almost nobody really there right now, and it's a very critically important part for us. Store, I think we'll be able to fill mostly. Maintenance, we've still got a few places, although we've got a good crew that have come in the past. We do have some cooks missing in different weeks. Pam is not going to be able to come back this year. Dwayne Dougal is not coming back this year. May come later. So we've got Teen 1 and Pre-Teen 2 still looking for cooks, and I think we've got a couple things in mind, and we're working through that. But our big concern, our great concern, is of course counselors. In every week, every year we talk about how important the counselors are, almost above anything else, because if things don't work the way they're supposed to in the cabins, then a lot of everything else that we do is not going to matter. So we do need to have some good, strong counselors. And so what I would really encourage, let's go back here, as we go down here, yeah, you start looking at counselors, boys counselors. We've got just a couple in each one, boys and girls counselors down here. So we're very, it's early days in one sense, but they're worrying days. And so if you could, in your own assemblies and the places where you are, please try to begin the process of looking not just for your week, but for other weeks too. We're trying to get the word out. It would be wonderful if we could have, certainly we need to have at least a counselor in every cabin, and we're doing our best to try and fill up the camp as quickly as we can and with as many campers as we can, but we can't have them if we have no counselors. If there are some weeks where we've got a few people that have signed up for a couple of weeks, that's wonderful. And I know it's hard for young people, especially if they're going back to college, and the challenge that we have of having an earlier year where everything got backed up a little bit. Labor Day is on the 7th of September this year, so everything is changed and backed up. So let's see what we can do to get people signed up and encouraged. And maybe start looking not just for, in a sense, the obvious people, because, like for instance, Bob Wheeler, when Ted told me that Bob was going to be the assistant director, it's like, why didn't I think of Bob? Because to me, you're a very obvious choice, but now, but at the time, it's like you were down a week ago at camp, and I didn't think then. But there are people there that are in your chapels, in your churches there that say, that person will be a great fit at camp. Maybe they haven't been to camp before. And maybe it's someone that's even a little older, someone that's not been a counselor before, but maybe they were a camper years ago and they're in their 30s or 40s now. We get that sort of batch of kids that come out of CIT and they stay with us for a while, and then they meet somebody and they get married and they start having children, and then they kind of disappear for a little while. And then as their kids get older, they come back. And maybe we've got some of those that are now at that point where they can start coming back again. Their kids are old enough, they can go to bunny camp, they can be a part of it. And maybe they have just worked in another area before. They worked in the kitchen or the dining room, but they're a strong believer, and maybe this is a good year to get them reintroduced to camp as a counselor. I think they'll see a different dynamic there. But certainly we need to be much in prayer about our staff. It is the challenge always of running an almost entirely a volunteer group. Again, going back to our survey, that was one of the things that I heard often is that we do need quality staff, but running volunteer staff is going to be tough. And then can we pay them? Can we start paying them? You know, and that opens another whole door that will be hard for us, because we asked the question, what can we do to keep, you know, campers coming and to get more campers? And everyone's like, you got to cut the cost, you got to make it even less expensive for them to come. We get more and more requests for scholarship help, and can we send people for free, and can we not charge them anything at all? And can we pay the staff too? So it's like at some point there's a breaking point there in the middle, although the Lord is good.
Just a note on that, if it's paid staff, you will lose just about everyone from Canada.
Okay.
Right.
Well, we don't have to pay them.
Well, and I know what we've done, and we're in a sense, you know, if you open the door, like if you pay a counselor, you got to pay a wrangler. If you pay a wrangler, you got to pay a kitchen. I mean, so then you got to pay everybody or nobody in a sense. And so we love the fact that it's a volunteer ministry, and it helps us to keep our fees low. But if there is a way that you could, and I know that some of the chapels have done this in the past, where you could say, separate to what camp is doing, we'll sponsor, you know, if a kid will commit to 2 or 3 weeks at camp, you know, we will have some fellowship with him independent of what happens at camp. That's a wonderful way. You know, we understand the challenges of being a young person who's trying to get to school and trying to pay their way, and but at the same time, it's one of those doors that if you open, you got to open it. It'll swing way open, way wide open.
Has that ever been brought up, like at the corporation meetings as an idea, or I don't know if it, you know, that some chapels have done this, you know, given a
We've
gift
mentioned
to
it.
a.
We haven't mentioned it recently.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe it's something.
It seems like a good idea
Yeah.
that people may, like you said, you know, sometimes you just don't even think of that. We were talking about recently, consider it a mission trip. If you've got a teenager willing to spend 4 weeks at camp, if they were going to go to Nicaragua, you'd be sponsoring them. You know, why is this different? So.
Our chapel does offer scholarships to our kids for certain verses, and one thing that we realized this year was that actually we're not paying for our kids completely, that what we do charge doesn't cover the cost. And you know, as a chapel, it was something we were considering, that if we are, then maybe we should actually cover the full cost and not just the fee charges.
Well, what he's talking about is actually giving money to people for staff too,
Right.
not to send campers, but to help
Yeah,
kids
it's like
that
we
want
haven't
to be
asked you
on
for
staff.
enough, so
Okay.
we're gonna.
But another,
Yeah.
just something else to consider is
Right.
what they are paying, and you talked about keeping them low and then paying staff the other
Right.
side of it. It doesn't cover the cost.
Right. Right. Steve.
Just an interesting perspective on things. Last year, we were praying that the Lord would provide us with some very mature, seasoned Christian counselors for the cabins. And if you look at that list up there, especially on the boys' side, everybody listed so far is 30, 40, or 50-year-olds. And similarly down the girls' counselor, quite a few that are on the 30-plus side of things. So maybe we overprayed in that area, and our CITers that we've had come through the channel, that maybe hopefully they're going to plug themselves in here real soon. But I think we had some good maturity already available in the cabins.
Right. Well, and I think also, and this is what I'm hoping and praying for, is that, like many of us, that we procrastinate. You know, it's like we know we're coming. We know we're going to be there, just haven't got around to filling that form in. So if we could try to, especially as corporation members, as we go back into our chapels, and just try and remind people, it is so helpful for the planning of the summer. If you're planning to come, at least even let us know that you're planning to come, so we can put you in pencil, but get that form in as soon as you can afterwards, so we can keep moving forward. Let's see, we are running late. So what we wanted to do, and I'm going to come back to this, unless anybody has any last minute thoughts, we're going to take what we've got so far, some of the ideas, let's put those into some kind of a document, let's throw them out to you. Maybe we sprung it on you a little quickly, and if we take, let's say, a week to sort of ruminate on this and pray about it, and just think again about that whole weekend. How do we do it? Maybe begin to identify some people that might be a good fit. And maybe even tomorrow you could begin to lay the groundwork at, at church and at the meeting, and just say to, have you ever considered just coming in for a weekend, just helping be a supervisor for some of our stayover campers, knowing that you can't commit for a whole week. Is there something you could do? And maybe it's something, if they have kids, maybe one weekend the mom could come and help with some on the girls' side, and the dad, watch the kids, and vice versa, if it's possible. Or if there's not, if they both could come, that would be good too.
Hey, Terry, I think that's really the way to go, is to have somebody dedicated to watching those kids, and
Right.
particularly in the girls and boys area. How many kids have come up to us on Saturday morning and said, I'm just beat, I need a rest. Oh, okay, well, so-and-so is going to be hanging around in the girls area.
Right.
Go to your cabin, we'll know you're there. If you need this person, they're hanging out at cabin 11.
Right.
Or they're on the porch at cabin 11.
Right.
Or I need to do laundry. Well, good, we have somebody supervising in the area.
Right.
But it needs to be somebody that knows that's what they're doing. Sometimes I've encouraged people to come down to camp to help on a weekend, and all I see them doing is talking to their friends. So, yeah, I think.
So we'll work on a job description of what the day looks like, what time their expectation
Right.
would be to be there, and
As somebody else mentioned.
Yeah, what the meal times
signing
are.
a person up for that,
Yeah.
like a responsibility. Yeah.
Right, yeah, very good. John?
Just one last comment, kind of related to my idea of defining when people come to camp, and depending on their role, it might be a different time rather than the 1:30 to 2. I think some consideration should be given to directors coming in Friday night, to give them some of the ample time, and I'm not saying that as a requirement, but they should have the opportunity to come in Friday night, so that way they've got all day Saturday.
Right.
And that might open this. The key thing around that is going to be housing, so I
Right.
think camp just has to think through the possibilities of being able to allow
Right.
those sort of situations. Not all staff, but certainly
Right.
directors to have that extra time.
Yeah, and that's good. Lord?
I can actually sort of speak on the negative end of that, having been a secretary where a director came in, it kind of ended up being disruptive to the current week. I'm sorry to the directors, it just kind of ended up being disruptive as the one director's trying to be able to set up and this and that and the other thing, and the other program's still going. So I see the value, but I see the other side too, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that's the guy, like we get Mike Blaze, they got a 10-hour drive or 11-hour drive to get here. And if they left on Saturday morning, they wouldn't get here until Saturday night. But then Team 1, we are just got people jammed in every available space, and so I just can't take another 6 people to come in that night. So, fortunately, he's been able to, come and stay at a hotel or something nearby. But, if we can find the space for them, I think it will be good. And it means that if they understand that they've got to let the current director finish, so they can be doing some things in the background. I guess it's just setting the expectations, how to be a part of it and not be a stumbling block.
I think to that end, the challenge I seem to have is that window of setting up the chapel is very small between the outgoing director and the incoming director.
Right.
Because you have all the training going on in the chapel, and teen camp is much different than preteen, so there's a lot of work we have to do in getting things set up for that. So that's maybe just a challenge for, maybe if you can bring down an extra set of hands for Saturday to help you pack up, and feed them breakfast and say go after things or something, but just a way to kind of help in that transition is really important.
Well, we've also had some thoughts to one end, and it's been a request that we've had for a number of years, about could some of the directors bring some of their things down early, because all of a sudden they've got to bring down all this stuff on that Saturday. I don't know what happened.
Tornado.
Suddenly,
This is not your
But we have had some discussion recently, just in the last week, about, up in the attic of the chapel, we've got that sloped bit of roof there, which everything just slides down into the hallway. If we could somehow, fence it off or create some kind of barrier there, which would help anyway, but give everybody a little blocked off area where you say, okay, this is Team 1 and Team 2 and round up, and You know, it's just certain things that you want to keep from year to year. You can just put it up there and, you know, maybe even create a little chain or fenced area so that, you know, it's like, hey, my stuff just disappeared. We don't want that either. That's an idea. That might save some of that scramble on that morning because the stuff is already there, and you can come down at other times of the week and come. Like,
we take advantage of that.
Yeah.
We have 3 kids we're towing too, so we run out of space fast. But my concern with doing that is I'm not gonna have it next year because somebody else might take it.
Right.
Especially since we're the first week, then I'm a stressful person, so I start stressing before I get to camp, like, oh, well, we took it, everything's there, it better be there. But I think I have my phone number on it too, so if it's something and it has Mike Smith, my number's on it, if you wanna use it, just let me know, because I have it locked up with zip ties too, so I think.
It's all there. I saw it.
That's very secure.
I saw it last week,
We
it's
took
still
those
there.
off last week.
Mike gets his own secret hiding place.
Right. Not so secret anymore. Okay, well, let's, as we're kind of talking about this topic, our next thing we've got on our list here, our agenda for today is networking ideas. It's really networking and sharing ideas. And so we're really looking for some ideas, and some I will email you these going forward. But one of the first is just how do we stretch our budget further? You know, it's, you know, we would love to be able to give more at camp, and we're going to try and do that. And I think John has left now. Maybe you knew this was coming up, John Clark. But he sets the budgets, and we work together on the budgets, and Dave is here. But we, you know, we did. It came up at one of our corporation meetings. Is that, you know, we have an annual budget at camp of $400,000 plus. For program, we set aside maybe about $25,000 of the $400,000. And some of our corporation members are like, this is why we're here. This is the main purpose. It seems like it's the smallest amount of budget that we have. But I mean, there are a lot of other things that really fall under camp program than camp program. You know, I mean, food and all, everything. I mean, everything is camp program. It all goes to support it. But so we're working to find ways that we can release more money from other areas so that we can support the directors in the program side of things. But if you have a specific need, you know, it's something that you can't meet out of your budget, and you really feel like it's, you know, come and talk to us about it first rather, you know, it might still be no, we can't do it, but at least we can look at ways that we can maybe find it somewhere else. But I mean, like, there's some things we just can't get rid of. We're working on it, like our utility bill. You know, they keep insisting that we pay our gas bill, electricity bill. But we've spent some money this year on putting new lights in and, you know, energy efficient things. And, you know, if we can pull that money back and we start seeing the savings, maybe that can come in. And, you know, so we'll do what we can there. But there are some ways, like for instance, and I can get you the information, Oriental Express, some of you buy things from there for Choose the Right Door and other things.
Trading?
Or Oriental Trading, yeah, that's the,
there might be
train is
both.
the Oriental Express, yeah.
That's true.
Oriental Trading, we get, through ACA or CCCA, we get a discount for Oriental Trading. And you just need to have the password and the thing and tell them that you're from camp. And there's some, I think we get free shipping, or there's something that we get through them. So we can get that for you, and it helps if you do it. You can buy things from the store. We've done that in the past with some of the directors. You know, I know Jay used to do it, just about all of his shopping at the store, which was good. And he'd come in, and we do it at cost. There's no, you know, markup or anything on it. So it's you come in and it's like, I want a flashlight and I want, you know, so many key rings or whatever it was. And he used to do even his prizes out of the store. And he'd like just make me up a backpack and put, you know, one of those and one of those and one of those, and that's for our team prize. So he didn't have to go anywhere else, and everything he gave all had the camp logo on it, and it kind of helped the store and it helped him, and it stretched the money a little bit further. What I also wanted to try, and we have worked with a number of vendors. These are just some of my own ideas, a number of vendors that we found very good. They treat us well. They give a you know, broad selection of things. Their pricing is pretty good. They'll work with us. And so we can share that with you. Just tell them you're from Camp Lolai, and you know, hopefully whatever we're doing, you know, they're looking after us anyway for the stuff we buy at the store. Some of it's clothing, some of it's other little bits and pieces. So we can send you those vendor contacts. So rather than you going out and having to find all your own promotional product people.
And along that same line, a lot of the custom printed stuff, you pay a fee for them to set up.
Mm-hmm.
And if we've already, for everybody to be having things printed with the camp logo seems kind of crazy to everybody to pay a setup fee.
Right.
If we've already got people that have it, it seems
That's
like,
right.
or why couldn't 3 different weeks give out the same prize and have a water bottle with,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, so
And
there.
we've told, about, if you have something that you're thinking about, well, we talked about Trello. Trello is a great tool for sharing ideas. You just say, okay, I'm going to set up a panel, and maybe it would be that. One of the panels on this thing, and you say, okay, I'm going to share it with all the other directors. And so these are the things I'm going to be buying, and maybe I want to do some key rings this year, or water bottles, or whatever it is you want to do as a prize. Maybe somebody else wants to do the same thing. If you bought it at the same time, you get a better price on it. You save this as a setup fee, you only pay once, and because of the quantity, you're going to get a better deal anyway. So I know people like to sometimes keep that close because they don't want to share their idea, but maybe if it's not a real secret thing, and if it's just between a couple of directors, it doesn't have to be announced anywhere, maybe that would help. So we'll try and get some of those things pulled together. The ones like sharing ideas, games, some new choruses, things that you might have come across. There are some courses at camp I really would like to start phasing out, taking them out of the rotation. But I have this year, we've been to a number of different places, camp conferences and other things, and I've been starting to write down every one that I think, hey, that's a great chorus, or song, or a camp song. Never heard that before. So if we can get that to some of our music people prior to camp, they can start practicing it, learning it, and then getting the music and getting the lyrics up. So let us know what we can do. A couple of new games that we have heard of. One, and some of you might be familiar with one called 9 Square in the Air. You ever seen that game? It's like Foursquare and volleyball combined. And I was thinking about yours, Rick, when you did the building the walls. We've got all this PVC, that's all it is. It's PVC, it stands about 7 feet high, and it's squares. And so each person stands within this vertical square, and you're really playing volleyball, but you can get it into any one of those squares. And you can set it up anywhere. It's light, you can pick it up and move it around. You can leave it in the rain, doesn't get spoiled. And hopefully it'll be another game like, what's an octoball that people play all day and all night. It's a great game. You talked about one, and I haven't been about it. It's a variation of of badminton.
Yeah, I haven't been able to find it.
Yeah, so we're going to try and find that. But if you find anything like that, we would consider buying that as a camp thing, so it doesn't come out of your program or your budget, or if it's something that everybody can use the entire summer. I think we do that, Mark, with family camp. Usually Mark buys the slip and slide plastic the first week, and then we all use it through the summer. So you buy it, but we share that. That cost is not a cost that goes to 1 week. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we can do like that, but it's got to be a game that would have an appeal across the board. So we'll be finding some of that. The other thing was about things like props. Last year you used all that PVC for the walls, but maybe someone would look at that same material and say, I got another idea I could do with the same thing. If we post that up there as a list, and say, this is what we've got. I think you had made a list, or started making a list of stuff that we found in the attic that's just been up there. Here's things that nobody's using. Maybe someone can take it and give it a new twist, a new idea, and use the same thing again without having to go and re-buy everything every year. It's just an expensive thing.
So I put it on Trello. So I started a board on Trello. So it's director stuff, I think I called it, or something like that. So it's I took pictures of all the stuff that's in the attic. So I think you can figure it out. If not, just call me. What is that? I tried to make captions on it of what it was and where it's located. Sometimes it's in the chapel attic. Sometimes it's the lodge attic. So I tried to tell you where it was and what it was. So we're going to teach you how to do Trello in a few minutes, and then you can just log on to that, see what's available. And I also, so I did props available, props needed, so you can add a card to the props needed. I say I need this, maybe somebody's got it, so you just say, oh, I've got it. Game ideas, skit ideas, things like that, I just added those in. So but all of you can add a different panel, so we'll teach you how to do that in a few minutes.
Just gotta get my internet connection.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Steve's getting the password first.
I have it. Spring 15.
Oh, okay.
Sprint? Or
Spring.
Spring.
Let's see if we can plug it in Amherst.
He hacked into it.
Give me 10 minutes.
That was fast.
Oh, is it? So it says we're
All
connected.
my pins up and said.
No, I kept his separate.
Yeah, two or three of those totes are Nerf guns.
Yeah, yes.
Betsy, I'm glad that this is happening. After the medieval themed ceremony happened, my cohorts in decorating crime and I from Northgate went, oh, I wish we'd known. We had made elaborate flags for VBS and all this beautiful stuff that might be used and I just didn't even know.
Right.
So I'm glad that this is.
So you can have access, everybody will have access. So when you set it up, you make sure you ask for a notification. When somebody adds something, you'll just get a quick email. You just go in and check it. And actually you can read it right in the email too. And then you just look and go and see. So it's a great tool. Thank you for teaching me how to use it, Rick. I've used it all year.
Okay, so then the other idea, and this is again another one that we want to just think about, is there or are there ways that we can go about recruiting? You know, it may be that your particular assembly doesn't have very many young people. You know, maybe they're all at somewhere else. We don't want to be stealing, but maybe there's some ideas where, you know, how can we encourage and use some of the people in other places? I'm going to try and log into Trello here.
At our chapel, I just made an announcement at the beginning of the service. I didn't ask for volunteers, I made assignments.
All right, there you go.
Go.
Yep. That's good.
So you just fill in their staff application and get it signed and send it in and
I just called out everyone by name and said, you'll be doing this year. It actually was effective.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Not what would you like, but which.
And that they didn't have to do it, but they did need to find a replacement if they could.
Oh.
Okay, so here's what a Trello board might look like. We've got a couple of different things in here, my boards.
There it is, Director's
And then this is the
Network.
one that Betsy has just created, this Director's Network. And you can share it with different people. You know, we've got stuff that I share with property or with the health department or ACA or our job description and so on. And then we look at our board. And then here you'll see where you can add members over on the side there, but just here's some props that are up in the attic and the stocks if we want to lock somebody up. Books of the Bible. Drag this thing.
So there's a great game up there. 66 boxes that are about this size. Okay, so what you do is you give them a team. It's a team game. So you just throw a whole, make a big pile, and they have to, it's by speed. So you want them to put the books of the Bible in order. And I think what we did was we told them they couldn't have any more than, so you used a shuffleboard court, 5 high or something like that.
We did it in the chapel last year.
Oh yeah, so it's a great game. I put it up in the chapel attic now, and it's all connected together. So you just pick up a pile and put it down, so you're not moving 66 boxes like we just did.
Ellie and I have been trying to collect Jell-O boxes so that we can condense the game down, so you don't have to have those huge boxes.
Oh yeah.
That way you could have 5 or 6 sets of them, and you could do it in the chapel on a rainy day.
That's a great
It works
idea.
really well, but if you're having team competitions, it takes forever.
Yeah. What you do is if you stretch it out over the week, so certain Monday
We
is
did it in an hour.
Yeah, so, but if you do it like, every team doesn't have to watch. You just, they do their own thing, but other teams can watch, because then you get the advantage of learning how they did it, so. But it's a great game, and it's all there available for you.
So this one in here is props that are already available. Here's the next panel is props that are needed. So you might go in there because you're connected to this and say, I'm looking for Jell-O boxes. I was like, well, we eat Jell-O all day long, and I'm just throwing away all my boxes. Maybe I'll send them to Ted instead, or bring them down to camp. Or maybe you have something that you're looking for, and somebody said, wow, I've got a ton of those whatevers. So this would be a good place for sharing ideas. You just got to check into it from time to time and make sure that you're getting it. And then we've got game ideas, skit ideas. Did you have more beyond that one?
I don't think so. I can't remember.
This screen is kind of shrunk down a little bit here.
Down. The props available scrolls down, right?
Okay, yeah. So you've got some more.
CRELL.
Just like Jell-O.
Trello. So there's flag boxes for teams with bases. Christmas tree lights.
Oh, that's
Huge bag of them.
That's huge.
Huge bag of them.
Fronds and fans. So as we go, we'll keep adding things to it. Now, some things that we've got have got like family camp written on them, or Team 2, or people have bought things for their specific week, and so we won't share some of those things. I saw there was a barbell there that weighs like 4 pounds. It's like a big giant barbell. I don't know whose that is, but so unless you write your name on it, it probably is going to be put in the list of props available.
Yeah.
And if you use something one year and you don't think that you'll use it again, and you don't mind it getting thrown into the available props thing, maybe it'll cycle back in a few years' time. So anyway, it's a good tool for game. Maybe we'll add on here some choruses or songs, things that maybe you heard somewhere else and you want to add in here. Use this tool. We'll get an email out to everybody.
And I think that things we all kind of put into our budget that are little expenses that we can share together. Things like we all get the Choose Right Door prizes. If you're done with those stuffed animals, you don't mind giving them up. And then we all kind of share those stuffed animals that never get picked, but they look good on the board, but never pick that ugly little animal, but at least it's there. And if we have banquets or things where you have to put nice things on the table, or table fixtures, centerpieces, backdrops is a huge thing that we did share between a couple of us, and those are the kinds of things I think that really help keep down the costs and sharing.
Sure, right.
Newspapers.
As far as the songs go, are we always covered under the CCLI for anything?
I forget what we get. We get like 100 something, I guess. But if we cycle some out, then I wouldn't think that we'd sing more than 100. I mean, it seems like some weeks we sing the same ones over and over again. But you can go there and take a look at it. We're covered. So we have a basic license, Lori.
So I grabbed my smartphone to sign up for this. Do you sign up under a specific name?
Yeah, how does it work?
You can invite us.
Well, we would invite you to this one.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll send it out to you. But you could create your own Trello board, just for like anything you want to share with Mike, or.
No, not really.
It's not connected to Pinterest, but it would be the same idea, where you can have your own, plus you can be connected to others.
And you'll be sending that out to the
Yes.
director type people?
And it's really great for camp because not everyone's in the same geography. So I come from North Carolina and from Canada, we all share progress on things weekly.
So you've got your own
I got my
for
own
your
for Team
session.
1.
This is the general one, so there's different
And
ones.
you see
You
that?
share the schedule, you can get schedule out, you can get the theme going, people can come up ideas.
It's kind of like Dropbox in a way, where you can have some folders in your Dropbox that are shared with people and others that are not shared with people. So you've got your own thing that you can,
And someone can't make changes, but they could add things, is that how it works?
Well, I think if you
they
come
can
in,
add
I
anything.
think you can set the,
You can set the standard.
yeah, but you can add things.
Like your staff or your job descriptions, you're not gonna allow people to make
No.
changes,
Right.
but some
Right.
things you can,
That-
okay.
Yeah, we're only going to share this director's network one.
So
with
when
all
you
over
open your
here.
Trello board,
Yeah.
that's all that would be there, would be that
Yep.
one. Or if you have Trello, it would open in your board.
Right.
Because Betsy said, this is my board, and some of
never
those
even
things
heard
I've
of
shared with you.
Yes.
And some I've got shared with Stacy, and some I got, and then that's new, it just popped up there.
Yeah.
because it was shared that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great.
So, good. All right, so those are some ideas for sharing ideas. So let me go back to my little list here. Okay, so we talked about recruiting and keeping staff, creative ways of making the Bible come alive. You know, this is one of the things that Camp Loloi has really always been known for, is having these very biblically based ways that people, again, I keep going back to that survey, somebody made the comment, and it's a good comment, is that we're talking to young people about the Bible as if they know about the Bible. You know, and increasingly, people don't know the stories of anything. Hey, we got a baby. You know, and I've heard the illustration a couple of times where a speaker was talking about Adam and how about Adam brought sin into the world, and because of Adam, we're all condemned in the world. And the guy got mad and got up and walked out, and it turned out his name was Adam. He'd never heard of Adam, about sin. He thought they were talking about him personally. It's like, how would you know about that? But how do we introduce the Bible to kids? Some of the stories that maybe they haven't heard, and this is why I love the fact that we're doing Acts, and we've done Nehemiah, we're doing Moses, and we're doing some of these different things that really kind of takes people and said, I want to read the rest of that story. I want to find out what happens to Moses. I want to find out what happens in the book of Acts or Colossians or other places. So, a lot of us, I think, have seen what's gone before, and I see a lot of those ideas, things that your dad did, Betsy, Uncle Bill, Uncle Dave, just creative ideas. We've got to keep that juice flowing because, that's a gift. And maybe sometimes if we could just use somebody else's idea, that's fine too. But if you have a good idea, let's make it into a good idea. Things that are memorable.
Just along those lines, Becky's not here, but I know that there are some issues with costumes, so I don't know exactly how it all works, but she's got gorgeous costumes, but if they're not put away properly, and then basically it's like a library book. If it's not put away, it's lost, and if Pharaoh's hat doesn't get put, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I wish I could tell you more, but I just know that is an issue to be aware of, and I don't know, how it's all organized or whatever, but just to be
It's a pity we got to put
sensitive to
those
that.
chairs in that little side room, because if that could be a room that could be doubled in size and have proper storage boxes for hats and it's got hangers and things, but it's hard to get to, and it's.
But
hard-
it's more after the skit, they throw the stuff and
Right.
leave. And
Right.
if things don't get put away and
Right.
refolded and hung up, it's just a
They're
real
gonna
waste.
get wrecked.
So.
Yeah. People have put some time and money into some of those things.
It really goes a role of skip director who
Maybe.
finds the props and puts them back
Maybe.
together.
Yeah.
And
if
they're there for the next week and the next year and whatever, just like the other stuff.
So I'm going to try to put some of Dad and Uncle Dave's ideas in there. So if you remember one, please email me. But the one that the plagues are the one of the biggest ones that they did, and so I'll try to get those up.
I think that Bill said that he had a file cabinet somewhere with a whole bunch of your dad's stuff.
Yeah, it's 2
so-
words. My dad kept all his thoughts
Oh,
in his
I
head.
see.
He'd say Daniel, and then 2 words like.
And then he would remember what that meant.
I
Okay,
hope
Dad.
you find it helpful.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, maybe that was his way of keeping those things.
Secretive.
Right.
His little code name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But I know Dwayne has offered to share with Colin when he came on 18.2 something, because he had that like a 6 or 7 year cycle that he would cycle stuff through, that he didn't have to keep inventing stuff all the time. It's a lot of work to build a brand new program from scratch, but maybe you can share some ideas or share some thoughts. It's good to let kids get through. Any other things with regard to networking or sharing?
Oh, it was just on the creativity, the last one, because I was part of that meeting, and we need to be more creative in how we use the camp, and then we need to be more creative in the way that we display and do things. And the one that came to mind, I just remember your comment, why do we need 5 color verse cards? And me being raised by an artist, it was like, well, because we don't serve a monochrome God. And it just as much as we can to allow the directors who have a vision for something, just to trust them with that vision and take it where, you know, it would
Right.
be taken, I think would be
Sure.
the greatest service we could give, you know, for the campers.
Well, my context of that was Colin's concern is, how am I going to compete with what Dwayne has done in the past?
Right.
And I said, well, you gotta look at, you know, Dwayne obviously didn't do it on the budget that, I mean, he had other people who were, there was help there.
And he had things donated, like people
Yeah.
who worked places that
Sure.
could get things done,
Yes,
you know.
if you
not
have the
what they
resources to do that, yeah, you know, go.
What I loved was the comment about how early on, Dwayne was like, how am I gonna compete with whoever the
Right.
director was
Right.
before?
Yeah, there's a, well, there's two things, I guess, two elements of this. One is that there is a tendency for us all to look at what the other programs are doing and saying, you know, either mine is better than theirs, or mine is never gonna be able to compare it to theirs. And so there's that sort of tension that we have individually. And, you know, sort of what have I gotta do with this, you know, little sum of money? What's the best way that I can use it? Is it for the verse cards? Is it for the prizes? Is it for the other things? And so we do have to be careful that we don't compare with what other people have. Just let the Lord take us in the direction that He wants us to go. But certainly use those resources, you know, because it may be there's somebody out there that can help. We've got creative people, you know, that are connected to camp, that are good at designing things or making up, you know, a template for something, or designing a logo or for a poster or something. And perhaps we can, you know, tap into some of that a little bit and say, you know, could you help me develop a little something for this? You know? And that's another thing, maybe you could share there, if you know of someone.
I mean, I don't know if everybody here was a camper as a kid, but, you know, what do you really remember in the long run? Do you remember what the logo was for the week, or do you remember the person in the costume who really presented, you know what I mean? It can be done on a low budget.
Right.
If everything somehow just connects to the story. You know, David's mom tells about how they had to serve fish for breakfast once. Like, kids are gonna remember having fish sticks for breakfast. That doesn't add a cost so much, but, you know, or having, you know, the marshmallows at every meal because it's manna, or those kind of things.
Right.
You know, it doesn't have to be flashy.
Right.
But it can still be memorable.
Right. And that's the other thing that sometimes I have a